Now, yeah, so why else would I be in the shop if something hadn't been broken in here? You know, because things only break in the shop, they never break in the field. And most farmers on YouTube never break anything. I'm the only one, I swear. So, anyways, with that being said, I'm at the pickup area of the 2015, well, this is a 2015 model. I bought it in 2015. It was delivered in 2016. I have over 40,000 bales on this baler. Yeah, 40,000, over 40. And we're having problems at 40,000 bales. Nothing too terribly wrong. Just about not quite $5,000 worth of broken bits and pieces. And you might think, my God, that's a lot of money to put into a header at 40,000 bales. Well, in reality, it's not. So we'll start the original problem, what actually happened to the baler to cause me to have to tear it apart. Me and Cody and Tim and Joe, and actually Tim didn't do anything, but Joe did, and Grant. So you see that shaft there? Well, there's the other half of it. Yeah, there's the other half of it. So I'm a little concerned as to why that thing is broken, because I don't think we didn't hit anything. It's quite evident that the rotor is still straight. There's nothing wrong with it. I wish Krone would just sell this weldment piece here that you would weld on a new piece, because that's just welded fast to the rotor. The rotor is $1,600, you know, so it's pretty expensive, but for the amount of work that it does and the amount of throughput that we get out of the thing, it's really not that bad. And of course, I can reuse 90% of these pickup tines. There's a few of them that are in pretty sad shape that I'm just going to replace. So we'll be doing that when I get the new rotor in tomorrow, because it's coming into Messick. I have to go out there anyway because of that piece, which was still under warranty, and it broke. I didn't film that. But when that shaft broke off, it caused a whole bunch of other little problems. Okay, and we'll get to this problem here as well. When that shaft broke off, it caused the sprocket, this guy here, this chain wrapped around that sprocket, and it actually did all this damage you see here, and it bent this shaft, that input shaft, or that idler shaft. All that thing does is holds the, well, here, let's say we do this, we can take that off of there. Who needs the chain? So what it did was, oh my God, that thing, it bent it. It bent it in a really negative way. There's a spring on that thing. I have a new one of these coming, because it not only did it bend the shaft that it's mounted to, I believe it twisted it. I'm only about 90% sure that it twisted it, but I know that that shaft is actually bent. So that has to be removed and replaced. I got a new spring coming. Oh my God. So I got a new spring coming for that, because, you know, every time, these things, they don't last forever. Nothing in the world lasts forever. I mean, even people don't last forever. They die eventually. But that skipped off, it broke the clip, and the little wheels, the little these little rings fell out on the ground. I watched it happen, because I got out of the tractor, walked over to it. That chain, the long chain that was here, this one here, was actually dangling there, and then it caught that thing, and it just wrapped right on around and caused a whole bunch of trouble like this. A lot of heat, a lot of spreading, a lot of a pain in the ass. So I ended up buying all these little pieces, and then I noticed that this here is actually cocked out this way, which has happened in the past. This is not the first time that this has happened. That shaft is fine, but that tensioner there is not. So that brings us to other issues within the machine, like this auger here, this stub auger. The key had loosened up, had gotten some slop into it, and it was still functioning, doing its thing. The bearing wasn't bad. There's two bearings, obviously, this bearing and the outer bearing, but it started to work on that, and I think that's the reason why that is sheared off. Because there's a lot of play and slop in here, that spring tension wasn't enough to hold the chain tight against that sprocket, and obviously the one that is driven on and instead of the slip clutch slipping, it was slipping the chain, and all that constant hammering is what broke that shaft. So we're replacing both stub augers for the simple reason that 40,000 bales things start to get thin and bent, which causes feeding problems. This is actually bent back a little bit, just bent back. So we're starting to have feeding problems because, well, I don't think we're having too many feeding problems yet, but it will. As this thing wears and gets smaller and smaller, it allows hay to get in there and it will become a pinch point. And I do know that this baler is not feeding as nicely as the brandy spanking new one, which it always did, and especially with that new slip clutch up there. This thing should eat like a, I don't know, fat kid at the all-you-can-eat buffet. You know, that's how this thing usually eats. So I made the executive decision to go ahead and instead of attempting to fix that rotor and putting it back in there, I need these things to be reliable. And in all honesty, $5,000 really isn't a lot of money to spend. Is it annoying? Yes, it is annoying. But in the end, I will have a completely new transmission. I will have a new rotor. I will be able to straighten out. There's a couple of little pieces there on the pickup where the bands, you can see them right midsection there, and they're bent up a little bit, and it's just easier to straighten everything out while the rotor's out. So that's the type of work we're going to be doing here, getting that all done. But the entire machine will be like new. It will be like new. The feeding system will be like new. There's a couple of other things that need to be done to the baler. I'm going to say before the new season, meaning 2020, for straw. Obviously, we're going to do straw again. And for the inquiring minds, yes, I have been paid. Thank you very much. It's a good feeling when the check shows up. 2 checks, actually, show up, and then life is pretty good. Because you can pay all your bills that you logged up behind you as you were doing this immense task, and that just needed to be done. So after 40,000 bales, you do start to get chipping and breaking, and if you look at this sprocket, it's due. They're going the opposite direction. One turns one way, the other turns the other. See how thin that is? So yeah, and I'm sure there's going to be some hecklers in the crowd here saying, should have bought a New Holland. New Holland wouldn't have broke like that, or this is just as bad as a New Holland. Well, to be quite honest with you, I never ever was able to get 40,000 bales through a New Holland baler, ever. The BB960A that I owned only had 27,000 bales through it. The first the BB340, that one had, I think it had 11,000 bales through it, and I got rid of it. The BB9080 had 18,000 bales through it. The BB340 crop cutter model had 22 or 23,000 bales through it. Might have had 24,000, but it really wasn't a lot. This one here, 40,000 bales. The main problems that I've had with this baler, I hit a stump one time and busted the front end. That had nothing to do with this, but I didn't change the transmission. I've broken that power takeoff shaft a few times, and I think 3 times now. How many times? Yeah, I think that's the 3rd power takeoff shaft that's been on there. And you know, so we're good there. That's all brand new again. And other than that, I break that bolt on the bull pull, which annoys the shit out of me every time it happens. But I've just replaced it with 2 natural bolts, not the zinc plated ones. I think the natural bolts will hold up better. And I have changed the chains on this thing, I think 3 times. I know I did it just recently down in North Carolina. So that's really what the problems are. So I've got this one out. Obviously you can see that the wear that is on here is starting to, you'll see some rippling and some fatigue and bending. So that's why these are going away. This one here is over $700. The one on the other side is only $300 and some dollars. So they double the price for the one side over the other. I had to buy the $700 and some dollar one because that's the one that is broken. The shaft is bad. The one on the other side is not bad. It's as worn as this one, but when you have things that work in pairs or tandem together, it's best to change them both, because if you don't, this one will be fine, and then that one there is going to be lagging, and you're constantly going to be jamming it up because that one can't keep up to this one. And if you're going at like 8 or 9, 10 miles an hour on the right-hand side, and then it tells you to fill the left side of the baler, you move over to that left-hand side and it's not feeding equally like this one is, or as smoothly as this one is, it's going to jam you up. And you can't be speeding up and slowing down constantly to compensate for a $350 part that you could have easily replaced while you had the whole thing apart to begin with. So I do things sometimes that baffle people, like, why are you replacing both when you only need to replace one? Well, I just explained that to you. So, you know, other than that, and I do really need this baler to work and function like a new baler because next year we'll be doing straw. This fall, I may be out in Pennsylvania, Virginia, or even back down in North Carolina running corn fodder and other types of stover through these balers, so they need to be good. That's just the way it is, and hopefully I can sew that deal up together here pretty soon, because I plan on 2 more balers and another stack wagon for next year. Yes, the announcement has been made, just got to secure the financing for it because we're expanding. Timothy is just loving North Carolina. He says it's so hot there that he loses weight from ball sweat, and he just threw something at me. Did that hurt you? Well, you're in an air-conditioned cab. What are you complaining about? Anyway, so that's the story. Stay tuned for tomorrow, and yeah, well, maybe I'll turn the camera on myself and you see my wonderful ugly mug. And I'm going to talk about something that's really been bothering me for a while. It's been bothering me, and it shouldn't bother me because I enjoy doing what I do. But I also like to get rewarded for my efforts. And I know there's a bunch of people out there saying, oh, you're a sellout. Well, I'm not a sellout, but I do derive an income from YouTube. It is a very small percentage of my income from YouTube. It's maybe 8 or 9% of my income comes from YouTube, but it's a nice little income. I mean, if you were to take an 8 or 9% pay cut in your, you know, at your regular job that you do every day, it would upset you to the point where you would want to quit. I'm not saying I'm going to quit, but there are some other YouTubers that are actually signing off. One in particular, and it's not an ag channel. It never was an ag channel. It was basically, let's call it a variety channel. And some of you may, I'm trying to get a spot where I can put you down and you can watch me here. It's a variety channel. It was SMP Films. Dude Likes Hella was another name that he went by. Now it's Live Each Day. He had his family thing. The Hello, or not Hello Kitty, but yeah, Mean Kitty channel. He had 5 channels. His name is Corey. I can't remember his last name. Corey. Anyways, I want to call him Corey Johnson, but I know that's not his name. He was in Alaska for a while, then he moved to Oklahoma, and they have taken I think he said 97% of his income had just disappeared in the last 2 months. And he feels like his career on YouTube is over, which I would agree. 97% of your income, when your whole income, or 60% of your income, comes from YouTube, and you're putting all this time and devotion into something that they are robbing from you, it's time to pack it in. I'm not packing it in. I mean, I'm just not. But anyways, it is disheartening, and you know, maybe I'm not so enthusiastic about putting them up, but I'm putting them up anyway. So yeah, anyways, Cody's here for work. Where'd you go?